Good morning, everybody. As you all know, my dog, as soon as he sees me pull out my phone, decides to be needy. So I take a few minutes while you guys are all joining in my live. Charlie, do you have to go outside? And try to get him settled. Today is part 2 of the market bag tutorial. And I worked very diligently yesterday. And the market bag is the pink bag you see in the background there. I worked very diligently yesterday to get my square done so that I can show you how we start cinching up the sides. So that will be today's tutorial. And as soon as I find a bone for my dog, but as you can hear him huffing behind me, he thinks he's the priority when I turn my phone on. Even though I keep trying to tell him he's not, no matter how settled I think he is, no matter how many times I've let him out. As soon as I turn my phone on and sit in that chair, as soon as he sees me put my phone up there, that's it. He becomes the aggressively panting dog. And he wants the attention. So we're going to fix that right now while everybody's jumping in and joining me. Easy. Good boy. And we're going to finish at least one side of cinching up that market bag today. Alrighty. Got my coffee. Oh, I already grabbed my coffee. It's already sitting over there. All right. Thank you for everybody that's joining. I am back. Let's see who's here. Janie, good morning. Cindy, good morning. Let's see. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for everybody that's joining me this morning. I know, I have to look at it through my bifocals. Thank you, everybody. All right. Alrighty. So those of you that are new, that is my YouTube channel, and after I do this live, I will upload this tutorial to my YouTube channel, to the NiftyKnotz Talk playlist. So if you want to go back and rewatch it, you can go back and rewatch it. Today's tutorial is, I'll put that back up there in a minute. Today's and yesterday's tutorial are French market totes. And this is basically what it is, a wide mesh bag that you can carry groceries in, or use as a beach bag, or a bag to throw your overnight clothes in, or whatever. It is very large, though it does not look like it from this picture. You can see my granny square totes in the back, and if I hang it here, it actually looks like it's smaller than the granny square tote, but it will actually hold twice as much. So, yesterday and this morning, I managed to get all but one row done, which was my goal, so that I can jump into this tutorial. For those of you that haven't seen my tutorials, the last one we did last week, it's a little bit funky there. It's really gray. It's some, I don't know, static from the furnace being on. The tutorial that I did last week was how to make a bolero shrug, which is basically just a scarf with sleeves. And I show you how you can measure to make it exactly the way you want it, how you can stitch up the sleeves the way you want it, how to alter the pattern if you wanted to use more solid stitches. I show different ways to do the sleeves. Later today I'm going to get to put my little beads. I bought little beads that I'm going to attach to the end of my sleeves, to my peacocks, peacoats, however you want to pronounce it. Good morning, everybody that's joining. So yeah, I took a week and went through it. It is should be easy to follow. I start from beginner stitches, and I explain the stitches based upon a principle. If you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook and you can yarn over and pull through a loop, you should be able to follow along my tutorials. So I'm using for this bag, and this is how much I've used so far. I'm using for this bag, I may as well just take that off there before I make a mess. The Super Saver Ombre, and I know it's backwards. The colorway is Anemone, and this is 100% acrylic, so it can be thrown in the washer and the dryer. It's 482 yards that I have on here. I'm using a size 5 hook so that my stitches are a little bit tighter. When I start working across the top and the sides, I'm actually going to use a 4.5 millimeter hook. When I start doing the parts for the handles, I'll use the 4.5 millimeter hook just to make the handles even tighter, although the handles up and around are just simply slip stitches into slip stitches, so they're pretty tight to begin with. The bag is meant to stretch so it doesn't get lined, and it's meant to stretch so that it can hold a lot. But the handles, I don't want the handles to stretch. I just want the bag to stretch. So you can keep shoving more and more in the bag, but the handles aren't going to stretch for you. And you can see, I'm going to have to make one of these for my markets, because when I tell people how big the panel is, that I actually work with that bag and how much can fit into it, I don't think people believe me. But I have to move my camera back for you to see how big it actually is. It would work for a diaper bag. It would work. I mean, you can throw your lunch. You could throw, I mean, I like functional bags. So this is a big piece of fabric that I'm working on, and it is 34 blocks by 34 blocks. So that's a huge piece of fabric. It does work up pretty quickly because it is all treble crochet and chains. And I do explain how to do the treble crochets. I've showed that quite a few times in the last tutorial. Each tutorial, even if I do the same stitch from a different tutorial, each new tutorial I do, I will show you the stitches over again, just so that you know what you're doing. For some reason I can't get my camera to stop shaking. Anyway, eventually it'll stop. Okay, so I'm going to count up, jump right into this, and for some reason, even though I really try to brush the crap out of my hair, I have hair everywhere today, so I'm going to count up my rows. So I know I have 34 stitches across. So I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Uh-oh, I thought I had more than that. Let me count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, I do have 33. So I'm ready to do the last row of this now. Make sure I'm working the right side because I've already worked on the sides. I've already skipped stitches. Again, I'm going to single crochet my 4 for the height of the treble crochet. I'm going to single crochet my 3 for the space, skip 3 over the space, and do my first treble, which is a yarn over twice, insert my hook, pull it through the stitch, pull it through 2, I'll have to fix that in a second, pull it through 2 more, and pull it through 2 more. So that's my treble. So hold on, let me just fix my skein here so that it will pull easy. It's going to start being a little bit difficult just because I've used over half of it. Oh no. There it goes. Okay. So I am now going to, good morning, Moon Silk. Hey, I was going to tell you, if you're on later on today, I'll sit here and do a granny square and show you how you can pull that granny square together a little bit tighter if you want. If you're going to be on this evening. Will you be on this evening? Okay, so I'm just going to work across my last row, and my last row is just chain 3. I'm going to skip my chain 3 here, and I'm going to work a treble. And a treble is just you're going to yarn over one more time than a double. I don't know. I usually jump on and off anytime I sit here. Usually, most definitely, sometime around 6:30 or 7, I'm on. Sometimes I'm on earlier just to sit here and turn my phone on because I'm sitting here doing it. But usually definitely like the last hour of my night. So usually definitely around 6:30, 7 o'clock on. And I can show you some tricks to pull that granny square together a little bit. Because let me tell you, your double crochets are spot on. I mean, you can do the stitches. You just need some just little refining tips there. And I can help you do that. I can show you some easy ways to do that. So my treble crochet, if you can do a half double or a double crochet, you can do a treble crochet. A double crochet you would wrap once, a treble crochet you're going to wrap twice. And that's pretty much just increasing the height of your stitch. And then we're going to do it the same way that you would do a double crochet. You would pull it through your stitch, and then you pull it through 2 loops, pull it through 2 loops, and you pull it through 2 loops. And that just gives you a little bit of extra height. So instead of being a little bit shorter, like the double would be a little bit shorter, the treble would be a little bit taller. So I've got 34 blocks across. This is my 34 blocks up, is this last one that I'm doing. And then I'm going to show you how we cinch the top sides today. So again, my chain 3 and my treble. In my treble, so wrap it twice into my stitch, pull it through my stitch, pull it through 2, pull it through 2, pull it through 2. So I'm going to keep working this across until I get to the very end, and I'm not going to fasten it off. And there really is no reason to block this, even if it's a little bit odd shaped. You're going to pull those sides together and you're going to throw things in it as a bag anyway. So there is really no reason to block this so it's perfectly square. It's almost a waste of time. So I'm just going to continue across doing my chain 3, skip my chain 3 from the bottom, and treble in my treble right below. So that's what I'm going to do for this, all the way across. And then I will have 34 squares by 34 squares. How was everybody's evening? Oh, not a problem. I don't mind at all. I'm sitting here doing it anyway. I'm working on granny squares anyway. My obsession with my granny square bags, it just gives me an excuse to start a new colorway. But I will actually, I'll just pull a solid color yarn out to show you how I get around it first though. And the part of the tutorial that we're doing today is going to be this top part that's in between the handles. So this part right here. And then the handles are worked along the side and up and over and along the side and up and over. So both the handles are worked at one point. So that might be tomorrow's. But today I'm definitely going to get the top cinched there so you can see how it pulls together. And maybe later do like a regular TikTok showing how much stuff you can actually shove in this bag, because it does not look like an enormous bag. It does not look like it would hold half your groceries, but it would probably hold 2 or 3 of the normal, plastic grocery bags that they have at the grocery stores. You could probably put 2 or 3 of them in here. And yes, it would hold it. It might be like really heavy on your shoulder, but yes, it would hold that many groceries. The starting chain count was, I think I started this with 143. That's in yesterday's tutorial. But I think I started this chain count with 143. And then Beth. So I started this with 143. And then after I did my starting chain, so if, just say for purposes, teaching purposes here, if this right here was my starting chain, this chain right here was my starting chain, it would be 143 stitches. And then I would skip 3, I would skip another 4 for the height of the treble, and then I would skip another 3 for the top of the box, and then I would treble in the 11th chain from the hook. And then once I started that, I would just continue my chain 3 and treble in the chain 3, skip 3 and treble, chain 3, skip 3 and treble, chain 3, skip 3 and treble. So that's what I started with. I started with 143. I'm pretty sure that's what I said. 143, and started my treble in the 11th chain from the hook. So you can see how big. Perfect. Yeah, I did yesterday as the first tutorial, was doing this part of it. And like I said, you can see how giant this bag is. When I go to markets and I tell people how big that bag actually is and how much it can hold, I don't think they believe me. So I'm going to have to like make one of these to show them how big it actually is. But I am now on my last row. And today I'm going to show you how I cinch up the tops of it in between the handles, this part right here. And I'm almost done. You are not going to fasten off when you finish this last row. You are just going to keep going. And I'll show you, because this is ombre yarn, how, and you have 34 stitches each way, or 34 blocks each way, how you can do it so the ombre flows in whatever direction you want it to flow in. And I'll explain that a little bit better as soon as I finish off this row. I could have done half this row so it wasn't so mundane, but again, just chain 3, skip 3, and treble in my treble. Treble in my treble. almost there. This is the last one, a couple more, two more. And I showed the treble quite a few times in the first tutorial that I did on this. So when I get to the end, I'm going to skip 3 chains and chain in the top of the 4th one. So I did 4 chains for the height of the miss out on the tutorial. You wouldn't miss out on the tutorial because I'm United States Eastern Time, so it's about 10:08 right now. If you go to YouTube, I upload all these tutorials that I do in the morning to this playlist here. So that's my YouTube channel. And then all the tutorials that I do in the morning, I upload to this playlist. So if you wanted to go back, so starting the first treble in the 10 and the 11th. You're in South Africa. Okay. I'm like clueless about time zones and things like that, so you have to forgive me. So right now it's 10:08. 11, 12. So about 9 hours from now I'll probably be back on. It'll be 7 p.m. here. I think that's right. For as much crochet as I do, I'm not that awesome with like just math every day. But you can go to this YouTube channel and you can actually watch all the videos that I've done. So like yesterday's when I did the beginning of this, I explained how to start it, but I do believe it was 143 chains, and I did the first treble in the 11th chain from the hook. And then I would chain 3, skip 3, and then treble again. Chain 3, skip 3, treble again, all the way to the end. And so I ended up with 34 blocks across, and I ended up with 34 blocks down. So it's square. If it's almost square, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so now I want to work. I'm not going to finish it off. I'm just going to leave my end there, and I'm going to decide. Thank you. And I'm going to decide how I want to fold this to make it. So I'm going to decide which part I want to be the top, and I'm going to decide which part I want to be the sides. This one here, if you look, I have the lighter part. I have the ombre working its way this way. And that's kind of the way I like it. You can do your ombre stripes working this way. It just look different on 2 different sides. This kind of makes the ombre, I don't know, I just liked it that way. Everybody likes things differently. So I'm going to take my ombre so it's this way. And that's the way I'm going to fold it. So you can see I'm going to fold the light colored to the light colored. This is just if you were doing an ombre yarn. If you were doing another yarn, you could do whatever. But you see I'm going to fold it in half so that the ombres kind of line up and are vertical stripes. So once I do that, I know that this part that you're seeing on top is the part that I want to be the top of my bag. So that's where I'm going to start. So that means for this to be the top of the bag, this part right here, the top where I'm looking at it folded, right here is going to be what I want to work across to start cinching my squares together. Does that make sense? Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go back to where I have my loop, and my loop is here. So if I fold my square up, so the ombre kind of matches at the top, if I fold my square up, I'm kind of going to go all the way across to where my loop is. And I know that this is going to be the top part where I want the middle of the handles to be. So this is where I'm going to start working my single crochets. Does that make sense? So I folded my piece in half, and I folded my piece in half because I want my stripes to go this way. And the part that is on top is the part that I want to be the top. So that's the part I'm going to work across now. Yes, no? Everybody's joining? Everybody that's not joining? So since I already know that this part is the part that I want to work across the top, and I didn't finish off my stitch, I'm going to take my, again, my number 5 hook. Okay, thank you. I'm going to take my number 5 hook, and I'm going to chain 1 for the height of the single crochet, and I'm going to turn my work so that I have my pattern going the way I want it to pattern. And I'm going to work across that side first. So I chained 1, and I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the very edge. So I did 1 single crochet on top of that treble crochet. And I'm going to continue across this row. I'm going to do 1, 2, I'm going to put 3 there, I think. So I'm going to put 3 single crochets into that chain 3 space, and then I'm going to put 1 single crochet into my treble crochet. And a single crochet would just be, you're putting your hook underneath your chain and you're yarning over and you're pulling it up, and then you're pulling through 2. So under your chain, yarn over, pull it up, pull it through both loops. Since I'm doing 3, I'm going to yarn over, pull it through 2, and I have my 3, and I'm going to do right into that treble crochet. I'm going to yarn over and pull through 1 through the stitch, and then pull it through 2. So I'm going to work that all the way across just to give myself a base edge all the way across to work with. So I'm going to go all the way across, and if you started with 143 stitches, you're going to end up with close to it. You're going to end up with the 123 stitches, or the 143 stitches minus the 11 that you used for your beginning. And you just go right into the top of that, or side of that, depending on which way you've decided to start for your top. So I'm just going to keep working across 3 single crochets in each space, 1 single crochet in either the side or the top of the treble, depending on which way you started. Please repeat the beginning. Okay, so the beginning of the whole piece, or just the beginning of this row? The row. Okay, so what I did to determine, because what I wanted to do was determine first which way, because I am using an ombre yarn, I wanted to determine which way I wanted it to look stripy. And since I want my stripes to look vertical, I didn't finish off, and I'm going to start my top single crochet so that I'm looking at it and my stripes are vertical. So you can see how it's kind of stripy from the ombre. So I'm just going to turn my work so that I'm working across the top so my stripes stay vertical. Does that make sense? At which point, depending, I'm going to chain one for the height of the single crochet, and I'm going to single crochet in the first treble. I'm going to do 3 single crochets in each, chain 3, and then I'm going to do a single crochet in the treble, and I'm going to work all the way across again, so the top, so when it hangs from the top that I'm working on, the stripes look vertical. If that didn't help, let me know. Right into my treble. So 3 single crochets right into my chain. 1 treble, 1 single crochet right into my treble. So I'm going to work that all the way across just to kind of border. It's freezing? I don't know why it's freezing. It shouldn't be. Let me see. Let me just double check here. I should still be here. All right, am I back? Or am I still frozen? Am I back or am I still frozen? Back. Okay. Did you get that part? So if I want my stripes on my bag to be vertical, like that one, the top row that I'm going to work it so that when I hold up that top row, my stripes look vertical. So you can see a little bit better. So my crochets in the middle. So, and then I'm just going to work my 3 single crochets. So basically even all the way across. 3 single crochets over top of the chain 3, 3 single crochets in the, or 1 single crochet in the treble. Now, you're going to eventually work all 4 sides. So when I refer to your 3 single crochets in your chain 3 space, depending on what side you're working, that chain 3 space may be the side of, because remember you worked your chain 3 and you worked your single crochets, and then you worked a treble crochet in the very end. So depending on what part of your work you're working on, like this side that I'm working on now is actually the side, so what I'm referring to as a chain 3 space is actually going to end up being one of the treble crochets every other row, because one row you chain 3 and you started that way, and the other row coming back you chained 3 and you trebled in the last stitch. So whether it is a treble or a chain 3, you're going to single crochet in that space, and then you're going to single crochet in the end of that stitch. So when I refer to single crocheting over the 3 chains, that chain 3 could refer to either the side of the treble, or it could refer to the chain 3, depending on what side you're working at, and that's fine. And then you just, wherever your stitch comes in, you're going to put that single crochet right into that single crochet. So you're going to single crochet over the space 3 times, and then you're going to single crochet once into the stitch. So 3 single crochets over the space, 1 single crochet into the stitch. And you can see sometimes it's not always like an exact where you're putting your single crochet into that stitch there, but as long as it's close to being in the side. So as long as you get 3 and 1 over top of it somewhere, whether you put it in this part of the loop, whether you put it in that part of the loop, whether you put it in this part of the loop, you can see either side, as long as it's somewhere on the top that you can get that 4th chain in, or the 4th single crochet in, I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3 over the space, and you can even those out a little bit if you need to, and then pretty much anywhere in the top of that stitch. So I'm going to go here because it just looks easier, and then 3 more in the space. And again, I'm going to work that all the way across. So if you have questions while I'm doing just the edge across the top, jump in and ask. If not, I'm going to finish this row and go to the next one, because this is like our prep row. This is our just lining the edge of the piece with a foundation. See, now this one, it doesn't, see this one you could go in this part, this one you could go in this other side of it. So it doesn't really matter as long as you put it on top of that stitch somewhere. And it's not going to really stretch out that stitch there where you put it in, because you've got stitches on either side that are going to anchor it. As long as you get it around the chain and somewhere in the side. And again, I'm still using my 5mm hook. I know it's a little bit small for the yarn, but I want it to be tight so it doesn't stretch too much. And when I get to the handles, that's when I'm going to switch to my 4.5mm hook, just to make sure the handles are nice and tight so they don't stretch too much. So you can see I'm working across the top here so that my stripes are vertical, because this is going to be the top part of the bag, where this is right here. I moved it. That's going to be the top part of the bag where this is right here. And then we're just going to decrease across it as we go back and forth to cinch it together. But I like to use a base row before I start cinching it. It just, I feel that it makes it a little bit sturdier than just starting to cinch it without that base row. So I'm almost all the way across. Again and again, anywhere in the top of that. Anywhere in the top of that is fine. So 3 in my space. Anywhere in the top of it. Good morning.
Good morning.
3 in the space. Anywhere in the top of it. 3 in the space. Anywhere in the top of it. Almost. Thank you for all the likes. 3 in the space. And anywhere in the top of it. 3 in the space. Anywhere in the top of it. Now when you get to the very last one, and this is when where I said where it kind of doesn't matter, like my first, wherever I really started my first square, ended up looking a little bit bigger. It's going to end up tying together. You can see that looks like it's a little bit funky and maybe a little bit bigger than the other squares. It's going to be okay because you're going to do the same 3 single crochets like you would over your chain 3 and over your end, and then you're going to come to if you can see your 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th chain. The 4th chain would count as the top of your double of your treble crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4 counts as the top of your treble crochet. You're going to single crochet right into that 4th stitch. And that's going to make the end of the top of that row. So you can see I did the top of the row with a base single crochet, and I did the top. Oh my god. So you can see I did that base single crochet on the top of the row so that my stripes are vertical. So now I'm going to finish doing this part right here, up right in here, and that's going to be pretty much all decreases. So that was row 1. Let me just mark my rows here so I know what I did on this side so I can do it on the next side. Always have my notebook. So the first row, and again, like these are just kind of, I'm freehanding things as I go along, so you're like listening to my thought process as I go. So the first row I did along the side, I did even stitches, which would be 3 and 1. So now I should have multiples of 4 plus an extra 1, which isn't really going to matter at this point. Because at this point, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. And I am going to decrease all the way across. Now this is an example because sometimes when I do like the amigurumi, I do an invisible decrease, which would be you would pick up the loop and pick up the loop, and you would pick up the front loop, you would pick up the front loop. It's not. When I'm talking, sometimes it doesn't. So to do an invisible decrease, you would pick up the front loop of the first stitch, you would pick up the front loop of the second stitch, and then you would single crochet the same way you would single crochet. But when you do that invisible decrease like that, you can see it looks different on the back. I don't know if you can really tell that, it just looks like a big mess. But you can see it looks different on the back, you can see the loop. So this would be a good example of how I would not use an invisible decrease. I would just use a regular decrease, which would be, you would insert, get it to focus here. So you would insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You would insert your hook into the second stitch you wanted to decrease, and you would yarn over and pull up a loop. So now if you can see, you have a yarn over and pull up a loop in 2 stitches. you're going to work those 2 extra loops that you pulled up as one loop, and this would be your second loop. So you've yarned over and you pulled through those 2 loops. You're going to pull through those 2 loops as one, and then you're going to pull through those 2 loops to make your stitches draw together almost in a triangle to decrease that stitch. So if you look on the back now, you pretty much have the same triangle on the back, and I'm going to make that a little bit tighter. I just did a little bit looser so you can see you have the same triangle on the front that you have on the back. So that's how I would decrease that. So same thing, I'm just going to pull it a little bit tighter so that it doesn't have as much of a gap. But I'm going to go into my first stitch, yarn over and pull up. I'm going to go into my second stitch, yarn over and pull up. I'm going to go through those 2 stitches that I pulled up as one stitch, and then I'm going to go through the last 2 stitches. So it's still like a single crochet, you're just adding that extra loop so that you're pulling 2 stitches together into one stitch. And yes, you will get the gaps there, but that's okay. Because you can see on the top of that bag there, you don't really see the gaps. So once again, I'm going to go through the first stitch, pull up a loop, through the second stitch, and pull up a loop, through those 2 stitches to draw them together, and through the last 2 loops to pull together my single crochet. And you can see how this is curling up. It's actually pulling that together. So if I show you on this bag, and actually like pull it apart so that you can see it, not tear it apart, but pull it apart. This is the top edge that we're doing, and it might be a little bit difficult because it's tight. So this is the top edge that we're doing, and you can see how you do the first foundation row here, and then you can see where you start to gather the stitches together doing your decreases in the next row. Let me see if I can pull some of those down a little bit and straighten them out. Let's see. I'm just trying to give you a good idea of how that is. So you can see where we did the first row is the foundation chain, the foundation row. The second row we started to decrease our stitches. The third row we're going to decrease our stitches. The fourth row we're going to decrease our stitches. And then we should be at a point where we're just going to do even rows the rest of the way up. So these holes that you're getting from your decreases are almost going to look purposeful because you've got the mesh part of the bag to begin with, and they're just going to make the holes at the top look like they're part of the mesh bag, just a little bit smaller to draw them close. Does that make sense? Can you guys like see that good? So again, you have your foundation row, and then you start your decreasing rows and the holes that you get. Good. Okay. Thank you, Cindy. So that's what you're going to do. You're just going to take that second row after your foundation row of single crochets, and you're going to just pull them together and decrease all the way across. So I'm just going to continue again. Pull up my loop on the second one, draw through the 2 loops, draw through the 1 loop. Into the stitch, pull up a loop, into the stitch, pull up another loop, pull through the first 2 as 1, and then pull through the 2. Through the first stitch, through the second stitch, pull through the stitches as 1, pull through those stitches to complete it. Through the first stitch, it's starting to get a little bit tight there. Through the first stitch, through the second stitch, pull through those 2 as 1, and then pull through the last 2 stitches. And I'll show you one more time, and then I'll work my way across. insert it into the next stitch, and you pull up your loop, insert it into the next stitch, and you pull up your loop. So you're going to pull through those two loops together as one stitch to draw them together as one stitch, and then you finish your crochet, your single crochet, by drawing through the two loops. I totally put my finger in front of that again. So into the first loop and draw it up, into the second loop and draw it up through those two loops together to pull your two stitches together, and then pull your last two stitches together to complete your single crochet. So into the first loop and pull it up, or the first stitch and pull it up, into the second stitch and pull it up through those two stitches to pull the two stitches together, and then yarn over and pull through the top to finish your single crochet. So you're basically just single crocheting two stitches together. Thank you for all the likes. And I am going to do that all the way across here. So let this huffy dog out, and then I will come back and do that. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them, and I'll come back and answer them. Come on. Let's go. If you're going to huff at me, you're going outside. Do you have to go outside? Come on. Come on. And now he's not real happy with me. He just wants attention. This is not Charlie attention. Go lay down. Go. Go lay down. Go find a spot. Go. Go find a spot. It's not in that room. Go find a spot. Keep going. Keep going. Do I need to put a gate up for you? Keep going. Sorry, guys. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go on. Keep going. Keep going. There's your pillow. There's your bone. Good boy. Stay. Stupid words. No, stay. You stay. You are not getting studio professional. You are getting real life here when you watch my tutorials in my lives. Oh my God, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so you stay. Let me finish all the way across here. Well, Big Chief Crazy Dog is sitting there staring at me at the end of the hallway. Like, you know, as soon as I start talking, I'm going to sneak up on you and start huffing again. No, you stay. So, same thing. Just going to keep working across. Throw, drop one, drop the second one, through two, and through two. Drop the first one, drop the second one, draw through two, draw through two. I should be able to do a little... I know. I'm like crazy lunatic here. I hope you guys find some sort of entertainment along with... Or I should say, I hope you can learn something along with my chaos. So I'm just going to keep working, pull up one loop, pull up the second loop from the second stitch, through two, through two. And as you can see, I would have to curve it now to actually show you the stitches because it's pulling them through, or because it's pulling them tight. So I'm actually going to decrease this whole row by half by decreasing two. So whereas I started with one stitch in each stitch going across, I'm now ending up with one stitch for every 2 stitches going across. And you can see how it starts to curve and it starts to cinch that bag together, which is what we want. Because we're going to take this giant piece and make it into a bag that looks like that until you start shoving all your stuff into it. So I'm just going to work my way through here. Through 2 and through 2. If you need me to stop and slow down. Did anybody have any questions there? I do appreciate the gifts and the lives. Thank you guys so much. Thank you everybody that's joining. If I missed a question, just pop up and ask me again. I won't be offended. This is part 2 of the market tote, the French market tote. It's my bag in the back that I'm doing this week. That's where you can find the tutorials that I've done. Like yesterday I did an hour or so and I showed you how we're making the mesh. And if we finish this bag early in the week, I'm going to make a smaller one so I can show you how you can do the same basic thing but just make it smaller. Where was I? Going through 2. It gets quicker once you start decreasing. Obviously, because then you'll have half the stitches. So again, I'm going through the next stitch, pulling up a loop, the next stitch, pulling up a loop through those 2 stitches and gathering them as 1 stitch. And by the time I'm done with this, I can tell you exactly how much yarn I used. Because I think I only used 1 skein for each one of these, at least one of those bigger ones. And I'm just going to keep doing my decreases all the way across. Oh, 14 new messages. I don't know why it didn't keep scrolling up. Thank you very much for the live. The second, yes, the second row is all decreases. So the first row is just, thank you, Cindy. Yes, so the first row, because you want to cinch this up nice and tight, because you're going to get this whole piece to end up being this big. So the second row is all decreases. So the first row is all just a straight basic foundation row, and you can see how it will look like it's starting to crinkle up there. That's because it's cinching those together, and that's what you want. You want it cinched together so that you thank you very much. I appreciate all the likes, all the gifts. It's unnecessary, but it's very much appreciated. So you would just keep decreasing all the way across. And that's why I say it's going to start getting much quicker. Much quicker after you start doing that after you've completed that first row, because you're just doing half the stitches. And again, that's through 1 stitch, pull up a loop, through the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through the 2, and pull through the 2. And yeah, the gaps in so many decreases end up being part of the design. So if you feel like you're getting gaps that are a little bit too big, that's just going to end up part of the design, and it's going to look right because you've got mesh here, and that's going to look like it's just going into a smaller piece of mesh. So through 1, pull up 2, through the first 2, and through the second 2. Pull up 1, and these are just single crochet decreases. Pull up 2, just regular single crochet decreases. Pull up 1, pull up 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And I'm just going to work the rest of this row a little bit quicker so I can get to the next row. I should almost be there. Janie, Cindy, Beth, those of you I recognize, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it very, very much. Anybody that I missed that's usually here, I'm sorry. I try to keep track of who's coming and going. But sometimes they scroll up faster than I'm crocheting and looking. So I'm almost there. Whoops. The little things that happen. So I'm almost at the very end. And then I'll show you in comparison what the bottom that we haven't done looks like compared to the top that we have done so far. And then I will show you how to get the other side started. And you're going to do exactly the same thing on the opposite end. Almost. And I'm not even counting these because I just know I'm decreasing all the way around, all the way across. If you miss a stitch, you miss a stitch. I mean, it's really just kind of going to fade into the pattern and the stitching. If you get to the end, like I've gotten to the end here, and I have 3 stitches left instead of 2 stitches left, I'm just going to decrease, and I'm just going to single crochet in that last stitch. I'm not even going to worry about it. So now you can see this is how big the top of it is. You can actually kind of see it diagonally in my screen if I hold it. I'll hold it back a little bit more. Let me move my camera back a little bit more. So you can see that we've cinched the top of it, and it is much, much smaller than the bottom of it now because we've decreased all those stitches. Like I can actually pull this and show you diagonally from the end of my screen to the end of my screen. That's how much we've cinched it. Whereas if I hold up the other end, it's still that big. So we have literally cinched this part in half so far. So we're going to continue the next row. We're going to cinch it even more, because if you look at that bag up there, you can see how tight you get the cinching. And that's what makes the bag kind of look small when you're wearing it, but big enough to stretch to accommodate a lot of things. Thus the name market bag. So you can put everything from the market in it. Okay, so we are still working across this first decrease row. And the next one we're going to do, I'm going to chain 1 for my height of my single crochet. And I'm going to turn my work. And this time I'm going to decrease by 3. So instead of doing a decrease over 2 stitches, I'm going to do a decrease over 3 stitches. I'm going to write this down because if I don't, like I said, if I want to get the second side just like I did the first side, instead of guessing, I'm actually just kind of writing myself notes. So the second side was decrease every across. So now the third row, I'm going to, it's actually more like a single crochet, this is how I'll write my note, single crochet 3 together across. So the stretch, yep, that's what I like about it. Like you could take that bag to the flea market and it would look like you were wearing just like a nice little bag there until you left the flea market, and it was like so overstuffed that you could just like, everybody's looking at you going like, how'd you fit all that in there? This is how, by cinching it up like this. So this next row we are actually going to decrease over 3 stitches, which might be a little bit easier for you to see now that we kind of have like the stitches look a little bit bigger and you can see the holes there. Thank you very much. I appreciate the gifts and the likes. Yeah, that's why I like this bag, because of the stretch of it. Okay, so decrease over 3 stitches, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to insert your hook into the first stitch and pull up your loop. You're going to insert your hook into the second stitch and pull up a loop. You're going to then insert your hook into the third stitch and pull up a loop. And since you're decreasing by 3 stitches, you want to draw those first 3 loops together to decrease the stitch, and then finish your single crochet. So you can see I've taken 3 stitches and turned them into 1 stitch. So now I'm going to do that again. Take these 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to turn them into 1 stitch. I'm going to insert into the first one, yarn over, and pull up my hook, pull up my loop. I'm going to insert into the second one, yarn over, and pull up my loop. And then I'm going to go to the third one. I'm going to yarn over and pull up my loop. And you can see now I have a loop coming through 3 stitches, and then I have the loop that's still on my hook. I'm going to draw these 3 stitches closed as 1, and then I'm going to finish my single crochet. And you can see again it gives you like a triangle look with a little meshy look there, just because you're drawing so many stitches together. So again, and this is why I said it gets a little bit easier. If I hold it down this way, here you can see it in my black shirt a little bit better. So I'm going to insert my hook into the first, these are the 3 stitches we're going to decrease. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, into the second stitch, yarn over and pull up my loop, into the third stitch, yarn over and pull up my loop, and now I want to draw those 3 stitches together as 1 stitch, and then I'm going to finish my single crochet by drawing through 2. So then I'm going to, this is the stitch that I worked in, you can see this is the stitch that I've worked in already, and I'm going to go to the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the first stitch, and I'm going to yarn over and pull up my loop, I want to make sure you got it because it's going to get harder and harder to show once you cinch it up. I'm going to go into the second stitch. I'm going to pull up the second loop. I'm going to go into the third stitch and pull up the third loop. So if I pull them apart, you can see that I have 1, 2, 3 stitches that I want to gather as one stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through those 3 stitches to gather them, and then finish my single crochet. So that's going to give me even a tighter cinch. So I'm just going to work my way across. You just have to make sure, since you've cinched these stitches together and it's 3 stitches and it's pulling it tight, you have to make sure when you're going into your next stitch, you just have to make sure that when you're going into your next stitch, so you see you have 3 stitches here. Well, it looks like you have 3 stitches here, but if you look closely, that's actually one of the stitches that you cinch together. So you already have a loop going through this stitch. So you want to make sure you don't catch that same loop twice, because it will pull it a little bit big. You want to make sure you're going to the next stitch and doing 1, 2, 3. So you can see where they're cinched together, where I have 3 stitches cinched together. And you can see how that last stitch that you cinched together might be easy to mistake for an empty stitch, but if you look real close, it's not an empty stitch. It has that loop through it. You want to make sure you don't go into that loop a second time, and you're actually going to the next 3 stitches. That way you'll get it even across. If you happen to miss one of them, I mean, you miss one of them, one's not really going to make a difference. Yeah, oh yeah, I've done it before too. One's not going to make too big of a difference, but if you continue to do it all the way across, you're going to end up with just like you're just decreasing 2 stitches instead of 1, or instead of 3. So I'm just going to work my way across here. Pull my 3 and pull up my 1. Let me show that to you again. This was my last stitch. If I can move it over a little bit. This was my last stitch that I decreased. So I decreased 1, 2, 3, and this was the last stitch. And you can see how when it pulls it, it makes it look like it's an open stitch, but it's not. It actually has the stitch worked into it. But because it decreased it, it makes it look like an open stitch. You want to make sure you don't put your hook back into that stitch, and you actually go to the next stitch. So you would do 1, pull up 2, pull up 3, pull your 3 together and pull them closed. Make sure you skip that stitch that looks like it's a stitch. It's not. We already worked it. 1, 2, 3, pull them together, close your single crochet. I'm just going to work this across. It'll be a little bit quicker. So I'm almost halfway across now, and you can see how much more we've cinched. And we're almost done with this top part, because after you've cinched it this far, I have to count my stitches. Because I think in the notes that I took for the last bag I made, I had as many single crochets across the top as I had rows. So I think I cinched this down to actually 34 single crochets. So I'm going to work through this and keep going. 1, 2, 3, pull my 3 together, close my single crochet, make sure I skip my stitch that I've already worked into and go to the next one. 1, 2, 3, pull all 3 closed, close my single crochet. Make sure you skip the one that you've already worked in that's going to end up looking like a stitch, and go into the next one. 1, 2, 3, And you can see how it gathers. It does gather. Which is part of the aesthetic of this bag. Pull through 3. I'm over. Halfway done. That's why I said it just keeps getting quicker and quicker the more rows you get to. So this is over half of my bag so far. Make sure you skip that stitch you did, that last stitch you did your decrease into. So I got 3, pull my 3 together. I'm going to go into 3, pull my 3 together and close my single crochet. Is that my other Cindy? I think that's my other Cindy. So 1, 2, 3, pull them through, close my single crochets, make sure I skip that last stitch that I did there, pull up 1, pull up 2, pull up 3, pull through my 3 that I'm going to decrease, close my single crochet, and you can see how even though you've got like bigger holes there for your single crochets because you've decreased them, that you're really not going to see them. You really can't tell, and it looks like it's part of the bag, but we're all ruffled up there so far. I'm almost done. And 1, 2, 3, pull through the 3 that I want to decrease, close my single crochet. I'm not going to worry that that's a bigger hole. Make sure I skip the last one that I decreased because it can look like another stitch that I didn't work into, but I did. 2, 3, pull through the 3 to cinch it, to decrease it, and pull through to finish the stitch. Again, this was the last stitch I worked into, even though it looks like an open stitch. It's not. I already worked that one, so I'm going to go to the next one. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to decrease through my 3, close my single crochet, go into my next stitch. 1, 2, 3, pull it through my 3, and pull that one, and you can see I still have one left at the end. I'm not really going to worry about it. I'm just going to put an extra single crochet there. So now you can see where I held it up before and showed you that it went from like side to side. This is now the top of my bag. This is now how big it is. So we've gone from approximately 140 some stitches to, and I'm going to count them, and you can see like this is your edge. I'll turn it this way so you can see it. So this is your edge where the side of your stitches are. Because you cinched it, it's going to pull in, and you're going to see on the top where you've actually have that first stitch there. So these are going to be your 1, 2, 3 rows that you've done, the side of your 3 rows that you've done, and then you're going to see the top stitches here at the top. Does that make sense? Because these are the stitches you want to count. You actually want to count the top stitches, because these side rows, this 1, 2, 3 side rows that we've done so far, you're going to count the side of these rows when we start working the sides of the bag. So you have to make sure that you got that this rounded part here is actually the sides of the rows that we just did, and we've cinched it so much. Yeah, you could absolutely put a stitch marker in the end of these so that you would have 1, 2, 3 sides, and then this is the stitch, would be the actual stitch. You can see how we cinched it that much. We pulled it that close that the stitch is actually right there. You could put a stitch marker in the end of that to help. And it's funny that I haven't done that because I usually have stitch markers and everything. Okay, so I will do that. I will grab my handy dandy stitch markers. And I will put that in the first stitch. That's actually going to be the last stitch. And then I'm going to turn my work the same way I did the last time. And I'm going to chain one. And I'm going to count these stitches to see what I have so far. So you can kind of see it's all ruffled up, but you can see at the top there each one of your stitches. Right down to the last stitch here. So even though it's all ruffled up, and then again this is the side where we pulled it in, you still have stitches all the way across the top. So I'm going to count those stitches. And I've got, what's that? Oh, I see what that is. So now so far I have, I'm going to count them out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I have 24 stitches there. Let me see how many stitches I have on my other bag. Because now I have 24 stitches across. On this bag I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 24 stitches. Hey, how about that? Sometimes my brain remembers what it does. Alrighty, since I have 24 stitches, I'm going to do 5 rows of just even. So I'm going to mark my first one and my last one here so that I know I have my 24 stitches. The first row, I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to single crochet, and I'm just going to put 1 single crochet in each one, because if I have 24 stitches in that one, that means 24 stitches here. And if I have more than 24 stitches, then I guess I will take it out and do another row of decreases. 2, and you can make these pretty tight. 3, just going to go into every stitch and work even. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. See my stitches at the top. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I'll take my stitch marker out and I'll remark that. 24. Sorry. So you can see now those 24 stitches a little bit. So you can see now those 24 stitches, that's how wide it is. It's just those 24 stitches. So after I single through, I'm just going to write my notes here. Did I draw out my pencil too? Probably. Yep. Sorry, I shake everything. So I am going to mark on my note that after the round 3 I had 24 stitches, just so I can get the next side the same. Round 4 I did even. I'm going to do rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9. I'll see. So I'm just going to work even, and then I'm just going to keep tally marks there so I can keep track of how many rows that I do. But you can see how it has taken the side of the bag, and this is my first stitch, and it has pulled that side in like this on an angle, which gives you the angle right here where you've pulled in your stitches. You can see where I've done my stitches up this side. So you can see that, I'll show you from both sides. So you started with your mesh and it pulled it in quite significantly. So you've got that curve in the bag where you've cinched all these stitches together into 24 stitches. And that's what gives you the curve on the side of the bag here. So you can see the stitches that we're working now are this way, and you can see when we go to do the handles, we're going to do around the whole side of the bag and up and over after we've done these two parts and cinched these together. Now, how much you want to cinch the sides of your bag together is going to be your personal preference. If you want them, you can see this one's hanging on my head there. There you go. You can see that's a pretty wide bag to put your stuff in. If you wanted it to be smaller than that, you could cinch them up a little bit more, but I'll go over that tomorrow. That's going to be tomorrow's. Today I'm going to finish these rows and show you how to start the other side to do these rows, because these rows have to be done and cinched before you can start doing around the handles. So I'm going to sit here and finish up my last few rows of this. If you have any questions, ask. I'll look up a little bit. Oh, Cindy, are you laughing at me? You guys should all be laughing at me. I feel like I should be laughing at me. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to single crochet 1 for the height of the single crochet. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to make sure I get into the first stitch and not the side stitches. And I'm going to work my 24 across again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, oh, that didn't work, 11, 12, thank you, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and this is my last stitch, 24. At this point it should be easier to see the ends of your stitches, so you can see where it comes up and where we've decreased, where we did all of our decreases. And now you can see it's starting to straighten out. It's easier to see the first and last stitches there. So these are the sides of the rows where we decreased, and you can see now it's starting to come up a little bit straighter, and you can kind of gauge where that stitch is now without going over the sides of your bag there. Yeah. I could certainly gather a lot of stuff. So that was row 5 was also even. So I'm going to mark, I'm just marking down my rows so that when I go to the next side, I get the same amount of rows and stitches. And I'm almost done here. I'll just do a couple more rows so you can see how it evens out a little bit. And then same thing, I'm going to chain one for the height of my single crochet, and then I am going to do my 24 stitches across. Five, 6, 7, 8. This is just one stitch in each stitch. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. You can see even more how we're getting that height from that, how it comes in, and we're going to kind of fix that and kind of make that even when we work up the sides. You'll see that. So I'm going to mark that that was row 6 that I did even. Again, just so I get the other side. Now you can really see how small that cinched that. You can see how wide that started. This is why people don't believe me how big it is. You can see how wide it started. And we took that and we cinched it down to just this much. And this much here, this part here again, is going to be this part right across the top in between the handles. So I'm going to do, let's see. And you can work these as single crochets, or you could work these as half double crochets. I do them as singles just because I like this part of the bag to be tight since the rest of the bag's so stretchy. You could do them as doubles if you wanted to do them as doubles. You could pretty much do these stitches. After you've done the decreases, you can do your even rows of stitches. Does that make sense? After you've done all your decreases up here on the side for your single crochets, and you can see how they curve down. You can see how the rows curve down where you've decreased. And then once you get to the point where you're working even, I like to do single crochets because I like this part of the bag to look a little bit tighter up there at the top. But you could, if you wanted to get the height faster, make them half doubles to look a little bit different, or doubles to get some more height. But I'm just going to keep doing singles. Again, just because the rest of the bag is so stretchy and will pretty much conform to whatever you put in it, I like these top parts here to be solid, so that you can see the solid part of the bag up there at the top. that part of the bag will stay like that. It won't stretch or give. I mean, it will a little bit, but insignificantly. Thank you for all the likes. I appreciate it. And don't forget, if you're to count your rows, that was row 7. I don't know how many rows I did there. This is going to be row 8. Whoops. And if I don't know if any of you guys went back to watch the first part of it. The thumbnail that I put up for this tutorial on YouTube actually has a little change purse with it. So I can show you how I did that too. That is like super, super simple. And that's one of those things that you can like crudely line with just a scrap of fabric if you wanted to hand stitch something together. And I can do that too for the end of the week. Tomorrow will probably be up and around the handles. And then we'll work on doing like that little change pouch that you see as my tutorial for my or you see as my thumbnail for my tutorial on YouTube. So that was row 8. I think I'm going to make that an even row of 10. So this row and the next row. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost. That's 9. I think I am going to do maybe one more row. But you can see how it cinches up. It's almost like a skirt. If you wanted to make a flowy mesh skirt, it would be like ridiculously long. But, I mean, that's kind of the basic gist of it though. If you wanted to make like a super flowy mesh skirt there, you could use the same principles. You would just have to use a whole lot more than 34 blocks to get that around your waist there. But you can see how you could do that. And you can see how when you look at this like this, and this is what I mean by like freehanding things and just using your imagination. Like you could look at this and go, oh my God, I could make a sleeve out of that. Doesn't exactly go around my whole arm because it would need to be a little bit longer, but look, you could make like a sleeve out of that. And it would be like a puffy, frilly sleeve. And that's kind of the whole principle behind this. You're just taking basic stitches and using your imagination. Like when I said like these people that like do all these designer gowns with their crochet and things like that, this is pretty much what they do. They kind of look at it and go, oh, hey, maybe I could do this with this. And you really totally could. I mean, this could totally be a flowy sleeve for a gown. I know, I'm getting off track because my brain just keeps going. I'm going to do one more of these rows. And then I will also tell you that if you do single crochet, it's going to be easier to get your right sides and wrong sides. Because if you happen to look at it and you got like one more row or one less row to get the stitching right, and I'll show you what I mean, it's not going to matter if you add one more row. So that was row 9, this is row 10, and then I think I'm going to end this with row 10. just to make sure. It would be a really cool skirt. Just to make sure, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to count my 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I did 8. I did 9 rows there. Well, I did 10 rows on this one. So I just want to make sure I have them relatively even. Okay, so that's going to be the top of it. That's going to be where our handles are going to come up and over where you put your arm in. So this is going to be this part right here. And you can see our handles are going to be worked up and around this way and down the side and up and around down the back and then up and around and down the side. So yeah, you just have to use your imagination, because honestly, you know, I think when I tell people if you can hold your hook and you can hold your yarn and you can yarn over and pull through, that's like, you can pretty much do anything, because that's the foundation to all your stitches. That's basically all you're doing. You're just putting them together in different sequences to make different things. So I did 10 rows. So I'm going to show you. So if I do 10 rows, this was row 10. So this was the even row that I did. So I want the even row. I'm going to cut this off. So I'm just going to take this one. I'm just going to take this one and do my infamous chain 2. Grab whatever scissors happen to be laying there. And I'm just going to pull that knot down and knot it off there. You can leave this here because we can work over top of those stitches. That's no big deal. So that is the first top. So now, when you turn your piece and you have your right side here, you can tell me if this makes sense for this. Well, handles are going to have to be tomorrow, because I have to do the other side of this down here. But I'm going to explain to you how to get it so it's the same way. So if you have your piece held out, and let me move this back so I can show a little bit more of the fabric at the same time. Is it going to fall? Is it going to shake? Okay. So I have 10 rows. So I know that my right side row was an even side row, if that makes sense. So row number 10 is an even row, and that's the row that I want for my right side to show. So when I flip this over, I'm going to hold this, okay, so that I have the top edge of my mesh. I'm going to go all the way down to the other side, because now I'm going to skip the sides and I'm going to work this same part on the other total opposite end, right? Got that? I'm going to work this on the bottom side now. But I want to make sure, not that it matters, like I said, with a single crochet you can always add another row. Or I could have actually gone back over this with just a slip stitch to make like a finished edge. But I'll explain this to you first though. So you know row number 2 is going to be your right side, which means this is going to be your wrong side. So you're going to pick up your piece, and if this is your wrong side is going to be row number 1. Your right side is going to be row number 2. So you're going to pick this up. This is row number 1, our wrong side. So you would then pick this up so that you started on the wrong side and started row number 1 on the wrong side of your fabric. So if you laid this out flat, if you laid this out totally flat so that the wrong side was facing up, you would then start your stitches on the other side so the wrong side of your fabric was facing up, and row 1 started your row of even single crochets down the edge, and then row 2 would start your decreases. And that way you would assure that yourself that you would get the right side and the wrong side of the fabrics together. Does that make sense? Somebody tell me if that makes sense. Yes and no. Okay, so you've got, let me see if I can do it this way. Okay, so if this is your fabric, let me see if I can, okay, so I'll take this back down so it's not as distracting since it's close to the same color. So if this is your fabric, okay, this is your piece that you've done. You've done this on the top part. Let me see if I can move this back a little bit more. Okay, so this is the part that we've just done. We want to do this same part on this opposite end. Okay, so we want to do this same part on this opposite end. So I know since I did 10 rows of this, that row number 10, which is an even row, you can see where I can see my stitches. Row number 10, which was an even row, is going to be my right side. So row number 9, which is an odd row, would be my wrong side. So all of my even side stitches, my even number rows, are going to be done on the right side of my fabric. The odd number rows are going to be done on the wrong side of my fabric. So I'm going to make sure that when I pick this piece up to start, I am going to start so that I'm starting on the wrong side of the fabric with row number 1. So I would turn it, so this is the wrong side of my fabric, right? This is the right side of my fabric. I would turn it so the wrong side of my fabric was up. And then you can kind of see as I hold it, the wrong side of my fabric still up. I'm then going to take and I'm going to start my crochet for my row. I'm going to take it and start my crochet for that row with the wrong side of the fabric facing me. I don't know how else to explain it. How do you start the row facing you? Okay, so the first, you mean the first row that I start? Okay, I get it now. I know it's a little bit, honestly, the easiest way to do it, I'll tell you this. I explained it. Okay. So let me make it even easier. You can take the wrong side of your fabric. You can start whatever side of your fabric you're working on for row number 1. Okay? So when you just start to cinch these up, so this is the opposite end. So that's the end we cinched. We cinched the top, which is hanging on the bottom. Now we're going to cinch the total opposite end. So whatever side you start your stitches on, so if I start my stitches over here, and I start with this side, you can actually take, you wouldn't want to take a stitch marker because a stitch marker can loop around, but you could take, I don't even have any blanket yarn anywhere. You could take some blanket yarn, or you could take just a different color yarn, or the screen will work. So this is where I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start crocheting on this side. And so this is going to be row 1, right? I can take this and I can just loop this around I can just loop that around a couple of stitches there, right? Or through a couple stitches. And I can tie a knot tight enough that it's not going to slide around. And I can put a bow here. Okay, see how I did that? And I tied that bow there. And then I would start up here, and I would start with row 1, and I would work across. So that way, when I went to the next side, to do the next side, right, to do the other portion of it, I would then know that I'm going to start row 1 with the bow that I tied facing me. So the right side of my stitches are going to be where you can see the stitch. You totally understand. Do you really understand? The right side is going to be where you see the stitches. The wrong side is going to be where you just see the back of the stitches for that last row. So when you start working row 1, you can take the side of the fabric that you're looking at when you start row 1, and you can tie a bow. You would have to tie it over two loops there so that it wouldn't slide around from front to back, so that it would stay there. And you can tie that pretty tight. That way you knew that this was the side I started row 1 on. So when you go to the other side, to the opposite end, you would know that you're going to start row 1 with the bow facing you. Helps a lot. Okay, good. I wasn't quite sure how I would do that because this piece is so big, and I wanted to try and kind of explain it a little bit better. The yarn helps a lot. I'm trying to think of how else I can imagine it or explain it. Did that work? Did that explain it a little bit better? But that's why you wouldn't really be able to put a stitch marker in, because your stitch marker would actually spin around. It works for you. Okay, good. Because if you just put a stitch marker here, even if you put your stitch marker over a couple of posts, your stitch marker would spin around. But if you tie a nice tight bow there, that bow's not going to spin around those posts, so it's going to stay so that you can, it's going to stay there so you can know which side you started on as your row 1 side. Okay. That, believe it or not, was almost 2 hours. Does everybody got that? Oh, you're welcome. If everybody has that, then you can take it and go to the very bottom, and you can do the same thing across the very bottom. What do I type in the search bar to find you? I tried NiftyKnotz and could not find you on YouTube. If you go up there to my profile picture, up there on my profile picture, and click on my profile picture, there is a link. It says Linktree. If you click on that link in my profile, there's a list of links, and one of them is my YouTube channel. You can click on that link and it takes you right to my YouTube channel. Try searching NiftyKnotz, all is one word. The NiftyKnotz, all is one word. But yeah, if you go to my profile up there, I do have a link tree where there's a list of links. There is a list of links, and one of them is my YouTube channel. I just got a text from my daughter, Mother Dearest. Should be interesting to see what she wants. I think I did. Like I said, if you go click on my picture, when my profile pops up, there is a link there, and if you click on that link there, you'll see a list of links where you can follow different things that I have. And my YouTube channel should be right in that link tree. But that's it. And this is the playlist or podcast, whatever you want to call it, that I do all the tutorials that you can go back and watch them. And that's what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to show you that you're driving me crazy. Hold on. Whoops. Okay, so yeah, try my link tree. That should help. So that's what we're working on, the market bags. And yesterday we did the mesh part of it, and I showed you how big it is. Today we did this part of it in between the handles. So you can see we did this part right here. So you're going to go to the very opposite end of the bag. You're going to go to the very opposite end of the bag, and you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. So it'll look like the top and the bottom. And I'm going to do that tonight as well, so that tomorrow I can jump in and we can start working around for the handles. There's a podcast, not on YouTube. They are on YouTube. They are on YouTube. It's just, I mean, the same thing you just watched. I am going to go back now, and when TikTok's done processing this live, I'm going to then put it on YouTube. But I don't know if it's listed as a playlist on YouTube or a podcast on YouTube. But either way, it's listed on YouTube, and this is the name of the playlist. So this would be my channel. NiftyKnotz should be my channel. NiftyKnotz Talk is the name of the playlist that I put all the tutorials on. So everything that I do in the mornings that I teach, I then upload. So if you wanted to watch this live all over again to see and scroll through to the different places. But yes, it is on YouTube. If you wanted to scroll through to the different places so that you could see certain parts, or if you wanted to slow them down so that you could see certain parts slower. Sorry, my voice is getting a little bit done. You can go over to my YouTube channel and you can rewatch these lives. My channel just basically has a lot of my TikTok shorts that I upload, but if you go to that playlist on my channel, how much do I sell my bag for? This one here, because it's acrylic, I think I have it listed at $35. This one I have listed at $35. The cotton ones, I would have to calculate the cotton ones because I don't remember how much yarn I used for them and how much it cost. Oh, you too, Cindy. Thank you very much. On Etsy, no, I actually have this one listed on my shop site. So if you went to my link tree, or if you just went to my website and clicked shop now, and my shop site is actually run through Square. So if any of you guys have swiped your card through a Square reader, or if you've used a Square reader, Square reader is who I have my shop set up through, so it runs through Square as well. But no, I don't have a lot of stuff listed on Etsy because more times than not, I lose more money a month than I make on Etsy. So I don't necessarily put everything on Etsy. I have very few things on Etsy. Most of them are on my Square site. The link to that you can get to from either my website or from my link tree. My link tree, I think, has my shop site, my website, my YouTube channel. Yeah, So if you were to go to, hold on, I have my square reader in here. So if you were to go to, sorry, a craft show and you want to use your credit card, if you were to go to a craft show and you wanted to use your credit card, Square, you've seen this sign here, has a reader. It's probably antiquated now, but you can plug it into your headphone jack in your phone, and you would swipe your credit card through there. And that is the same company that I use to make my website. So it would be square.com. I know it's backwards, but square.com, and that's who I use my website through. So yeah, my site will take credit cards, yes. And it's run through Square. It's not just, you know, you're arbitrarily sending money to just whatever. It actually runs through the same Square site that you would use if you went to a vendor show and they took credit cards. That's usually what most of them use here in the United States. So yeah, it does take debit cards. And I think I have them listed under, I don't know what I have them listed under in my shop. Probably market bags, French market totes. Yeah. This one, I don't remember the name of the colorway with this one, but it's the same yarn. It was just a brighter color than this yarn. And I do like these ombre yarns for these bags because it just gives it like, I don't know, like this one, the ombre ended up in the center. Next skein I do, who knows where the ombre will end up. It just ends up a little bit different, and I think it just, I don't know, I liked it that way, so that's the way I did it. And you can see how it's a little bit lighter on the sides. But, oh, you are more than welcome for all the information. And at this point, I really need to stop talking because I think I've done enough this morning. I am very glad for all of you and very grateful for all of you that joined me. I really do truly appreciate it. I'll put that back up there. I hope you guys have a great day as well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a message. I don't mind answering questions. Moon, I don't remember the rest of your handle. I would have to go, Moon Silk. Moon Silk, if you want to jump on, I don't know, maybe, what is this, about 7 hours from now, I will probably be back on and I can help you out with that granny square. And again, usually by 3 or 4 o'clock, this live that I just did now, just like it is. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You guys are so kind to me. I hope you guys all have a great day too. But yeah, by 3 or 4 o'clock, this exact live that I just did will be uploaded to TikTok, and you can go to my channel and see that as part 2 of the French market totes. Again, thank you. And I agree, everyone, I hope you have a fantastic day and enjoy it. Patty, your name's Patty. Alrighty. And if I don't see you guys later for just some chit chat and just whatever, I will see you tomorrow for the 3rd part of this tutorial, and hopefully we get to at least accomplish our handles. We'll see. Thank you.